I employed it personally, but I did on a more basic platform, bug rooms. I'll give you one example, and this goes back to the early 70s. When I mentioned my first campaign in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, I believe I mentioned that my client owned the motel in town. So not only did I stay there, but the union organizer, who had to come in from Green Bay, Wisconsin, stayed in the same hotel. And in those days, older motels had the kind of switchboards that you plugged in these little wired sticks to. And as soon as we learned that the union organizer was in the same hotel, we had his phone rigged so that whenever he made an outgoing or had an incoming call, it was immediately transferred to my room as well as his, where I had a little reel-to-reel tape recorder with a suction cup. Regrettably, I heard more conversations between he and his wife than I did union business, but that was basic surveillance. But today, the sky is the limit. And again, Mark, you need to understand that union busting has no limitations. There's no regulatory system governing it. There's no licensure requirements. These people, they're terrorists. They're only as good as their last case. And they have to win. In fact, I'll go back to fees. I live in Las Vegas now, and I'm working with a few unions there who come up against a couple of union busters that are kind of the union busters of choice in Las Vegas. And these individuals engage in what is known as persuader activity, whereas my union busting went through supervisors and management. These individuals do that, but they also talk directly to proposed bargaining unit employees. And because of that, they're required by the Department of Labor to file labor management disclosure forms revealing what their fees are. And two of these fellows that I've gone up against in Las Vegas, their average billings to one client are about $500,000 a month. So it's a high-stakes game, and that I have documentation that I would be more than happy to make available to you.
How often do these fellows that you've worked with in the past attempt to get in contact with you today, or have contacted you since your book came out? Have they attempted to convince you that you've taken the wrong path?
No, I have not heard from anybody from my former field since the release of my book, or since word got out that I was exposing my former field. In fact, the closest I've come to any of them was in an airport concourse, and when they saw me, I watched them take a very wide angle and look away as they walked by me, as if they didn't even want to come in view.
Marty, why did you switch?
Well, the reason was somewhat of a process, too. About a dozen years ago, I was at the top of my former game. I was making more money than I was able to spend, but my personal life, my family life, was in chaos and turmoil. I was not happy. My conscience started to creep to the forefront and make me aware that my work had devastated and destroyed the working lives, the family lives, the personal lives, and even the careers of innocent, hard-working people. That whole set of circumstances started to catch up with me, and I found myself becoming somewhat self-destructive with no way out, because the money, the glamour of the slam bam, thank you ma'am of union busting had me so in a noose that I felt helpless. And I reached out for help. I didn't know where to turn, and fortunately, out there for me what is commonly referred to as a 12-step program. And as I entered into that world of 12 steps, I discovered not only a potential new lifestyle, but a way to make amends to what literally had become hundreds of thousands of people's lives that I had directly or indirectly ruined or dramatically interfered with. So once I found that vehicle, it was how do you make amends? I did not believe at that time that organized labor or the labor movement would ever welcome me into one of their meetings or one of their rooms to present to them the expose of union busting and how to counter it. So the idea of writing a book, although I had no prior author experience, I felt was a way to make those amends and get something out there that would be valuable to working people in terms of what really goes on behind the scenes and what to expect and how to protect yourself. So the motivation for the book was a vehicle to make amends, and fortunately I have over the last decade been invited into many union conference rooms and convention halls and meetings and educational presentations where I have, still with some skepticism, gotten people within the movement to listen to me. So my process of amends has gone beyond the book, and thus what I do today, I do as much for myself as I do for the working people and unions that I have the opportunity to work with and present before.
Do you have any regrets about the conversion you've made to the union side? Oh,
no, quite to the contrary. You know, my conversion was not about money. And although my livelihood and my financial situation does not resemble what it used to be, my happiness with myself has never been better. I mean, I get up every morning, and other than a physical and medical health problem, I feel good about myself, and I look forward to my days, and every time I have an engagement with working people, it's my natural high. So, no, I have no regrets.
How do you explain all this to your kids?
Because they're older now, they're both in their early 20s, they can see for themselves. When I was union busting, they really didn't understand what Dad did. They knew Dad ran election campaigns. They knew that Dad never had to buy them pajamas because I always brought home extra large Vote No t-shirts for them to sleep in. But they never understood the dynamics of my prior work. Now that they do, because they're mature young adults and out on their own, they're very proud of me as I am them. So there's no need for any explaining.
What are some of the union organizations in the aviation community that you have helped or assisted to date?
I got involved with the Allied Pilots Association, the union representing the American Airlines pilots, and worked with them and their family awareness program to give them the bigger picture of what was going on at American Airlines. I've had the opportunity to work with the Independent Pilots Association, which is the union representing UPS pilots. I had an 8-month relationship with them, concentrating on the same thing, and that was bringing union busting into the picture as the underlying motive behind the dispute, the conflict. I recently worked with the Northwest ALPA, the Northwest Airline Pilots Association, in their recent labor dispute. So I've had some ongoing exposure to the airline industry and some of its unique issues, although it's not unique in terms of union busting. Union busting has no preference to the level of worker. You know, it impacts anybody who works for a living, regardless of their profession, regardless of their job.
You anticipated my next question, which is, how are pilots different?
Pilots are not different. Pilots are professional, certainly. They're at the high end of the wage scale, but they still are working people, and they work for an employer, and most of those employers have that obsession for control, that connector, that conduit to union busting.
So if a pilot comes from, say, a military background where he's used to following orders, and he leaves that environment and goes into the civilian workforce, Is that a hurdle